All right, team. We are back in the Fireside PM live stream slash podcast. And I have a very special guest. I have my former office mate from Microsoft, like 2004, 2005,
That's right. That's right.
in the Red West campus, back when Microsoft was not that cool.
That's right. That's right. Well, and we were at Hotmail, which was
Definitely not that cool.
people don't even really know what that is unless you're
Yeah.
an OG.
Yeah, they don't even know what MSN is. But we were there, and we were there when Bill Gates was still at Microsoft, and then Ballmer.
That's right.
We
That's right.
missed the Satya
Yeah.
era. I think it would have been good to see it.
He came from Great Plains, right? You remember that? I thought
Did
he
he
came
come from Great
I think
Plains?
so. I think
Oh,
so. And I remember when we were there, Great Plains was like really just starting to pick up and do really well.
oh, interesting. Yeah, I thought he was on Bing as well at some point. No.
Maybe. I thought that there was some association with Great Plains, but yeah, I mean, we missed that era. We
Yeah.
were. I remember we were waiting for the stock to break 30. That was the roof. I think it was 30.
That was going to be a watershed moment.
That's right. That's right.
Well, Richard, thank you for coming on to the pod. This is actually not your first time that I've interviewed you for a podcast, but it's been a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
Last time I did it, you were back at the company formerly known as Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just, for those who don't know who you are, maybe give us a little bit of a broader background, and then we'll kind of jump through your career and talk about kind of hard lessons learned, easy lessons learned, and be helpful to the PMs of the world.
Yeah. So I guess just to begin, I grew up in the Washington D.C. area, in suburbs of Maryland. I went to UC Berkeley, partially because I wanted to get really far away from home. And at the time, California seemed like a very cool place to be. So picked up and came to Cal before ever visiting California, like never stepped foot in California. But it was cool because that was the last year you could get in-state tuition after 1 year of staying in the state. So saved a bit of money. Stayed at Cal, and then went back to DC, worked in a strategy consulting firm called Kaiser Associates, very small boutique strategy shop. And then just to date me, this was like 1999, and the first internet boom was happening, and it was surreal. And I felt like I was just sitting on the sidelines watching all of this stuff happen in California and Silicon Valley. So picked up after about 3 years, and in 1999 moved out to the Bay Area. Joined a very small startup at the time called Vividence, which you've never heard of, but it was sort of a precursor to Google Analytics and Web Analytics. Did that for a little while, and then what was it? In 2002, went to get my MBA at Wharton. Did that for
Donald Trump's alma mater. Very,
know,
very esteemed alum.
I have a picture with Donald Trump.
Oh, no.
Have I shown you?
Oh, God. Poor thing.
I gotta show you. It's me and Donald Trump sort of arm in arm, because he was going to visit his daughter Ivanka, who was graduating from undergrad, and this was at the time when The Apprentice was really big. His his reality show, and so he was
fame.
Yeah, he was a big time celebrity at the time. So I have a picture with me and the Donald, which my mother's very proud of. Even she's not supportive of the politics per se, but she's supportive of me taking a picture with the president of the United States. So did that for 2 years, and then did my internship, and then went to Microsoft full time, where you and I worked together. We were PMs on Hotmail, which was an interesting time because that was when Gmail had launched, and essentially this is old school history, right? But Gmail launched at the time with 2 gigabytes of email, and I think we were 10 megs. right?
Yeah, at most, I think Hotmail Plus was like 20 megabytes.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it was nuts. So you and I were trying to figure out how to rebuild Hotmail to compete with the likes of Yahoo Mail and Google at the time, Gmail. So it was in Seattle for a little bit, then moved to Silicon Valley, where the Hotmail product team and engineering team was.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's see, then left and joined another small startup. And then no, what did I do after Hotmail? That was a company called Anchor Intelligence, super small startup, about 6-7 people. Joined at the ground level, got my full dose of what it's like to work at a very small, scrappy startup with no revenue at the time and trying to grow that thing. Had some modest success. I think we ended up doing a bit of a fire sale of some of the IP, but great experience. And then through there, went to Facebook and joined the ads team there. And I was looking back on this was 2010 when I joined Facebook, and I was there for 7 years. I think we were like 1,600 people when I joined. The entire ads product and engineering team fit in this like large conference room where we would do these weekly meetings. So pretty early on, I did product marketing there, and I mean, in the early days, we sort of did everything. Like there was more than enough work to do, so we were writing specs, we were sort of mocking up designs, we were doing a bunch of research with customers. Did that for 7 years, had a fantastic time. I think my time at Facebook was pretty magical. Yeah, just really incredible people and opportunity, and we all kind of felt like we were changing the world. So I did that for 7 years, and then in 2017, went to I guess it was kind of a startup at the time called Context Logic, better known as Wish. Wish was the mobile e-commerce that specialized in drop shipping. They were big when fidget spinners were big, and I remember there was this like buy fidget spinner for $1 and pay $1 shipping. But that company, believe it or not, was the largest advertiser on Facebook, more than like Amazon, Procter and Gamble, like all of those really big spenders, because they basically built their business leveraging the Facebook ad system to drive user acquisition and to monetize. Did that for honestly like a hot second. It was probably I think 6-9 months. That was also a very colorful, not ideal situation, and I can get into that a little bit as well. And then actually took a little bit of time off. Spent about 6 months sort of hanging out with the family. Did a little bit of advisory and consulting work. Ended up like doing consulting work for Reddit, a company called Moloko, who I'm still talking to quite a bit. And then started getting a little antsy, and was trying to figure out what to do next. Didn't love my time at Wish, and so really felt like I wanted to do something that was personally like really meaningful and resonated with me, and started looking into gaming a little bit. I'm not a gamer, but gaming is always at the forefront of a lot of innovation, and has some super smart people, really creative people. And my kids at the time were playing this thing called Roblox. And I had no idea what it was. I kind of knew it was like Minecraft, like Pokemon Go, but they were on it all the time with all of their friends. And this was like 2017. And so I was like, what is this? And I started looking over their shoulder and couldn't quite get it, but they were like having a blast with all their friends playing these different games on Roblox. And then one of our former colleagues from Hotmail, I don't know if I told you this. Remember Walter?
Harp?
No. Walter Shea. He was a back end on like more like I think the infra side.
Oh, I know I remember the name, but I don't think I worked.
Okay. Because I did a lot of the back end. Remember at Hotmail, like the storage and trying to figure that stuff out. So I think I may have worked with him a little bit more. But so I contacted him and was like, hey Walter, like trying to figure out what to do next. See that you work at this company Roblox. Like, what's it about?
Mm-hmm.
I got to give him credit because he said, drop everything and come as fast as you can.
Wow.
Because, he was like, nobody but parents really know what we are, but we are crushing it. And we are on something, like we've discovered something pretty special. And he was like, we need some really strong product folks. And if I were you, I would just run here as fast as you can.
Wow.
Which was awesome. And my wife at the time, my wife at that time, she's still my wife, but my wife at that time was like, no. We know it. All the parents know Roblox because all the kids are on Roblox. And so it was like really in the early stages before it took off. And so thank you, Walter, because I wasted no time and came over and been here at Roblox ever since. So it's been about almost 6 years.
Is Walter still there?
He is.
I love it.
Yeah.
Somebody owes Walter a steak dinner, I think.
I think I did. I took him out to some Korean food.
All right. There you go. Little all you can eat barbecue.
I mean, it was it kind of we'll probably talk about this, but like some of those relationships that you build early on in your career, and even like you and I have stayed in touch, and those come in really handy.
Yeah, totally. Wow. Where to begin? Okay, first of all, I did a little fact checking, and I think our response as Hotmail was to boost it from 2 megabytes to 250 megabytes for free.
Yeah, look at that.
For users.
That's innovation right there.
And
it was hard though. It was crazy.
Because our architecture was so expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, we were running on like Sun hardware and like, Oracle databases and stuff like that. So like,
yeah.
It was not designed for multi-gigabyte inboxes. Like,
right.
It used to be, it was 2 megabytes for free, 20 megabytes for Hotmail Plus, which was a multi-tens of millions of dollar business.
I think it was like a $50 million business.
That was the number I was thinking. Yes.
Because remember, we would also expire your email address. Do you remember that?
Oh, if you didn't log in for 30 days.
Yeah, 30 days.
All of your girlfriend's emails are gone forever.
All of the photos, everything.
Yeah.
So,
and if you attach one photo, that's one photo, the whole inbox is.
That's right. There are no photos.
they had a little like storage meter. Like people would watch that thing like range anxiety on a Tesla.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we made $50 million from people who were paying us to not delete their emails.
Yeah. That was a fascinating time. It was a classic kind of like innovator's dilemma issue where you're like, well, do we cannibalize a Hotmail Plus business? And at that time, also I think we were very eager to build it entirely on Microsoft Stack.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if like SQL Server and stuff was like really ready for that kind of load.
Yeah. And it's one thing to be able to build that from scratch. But I mean, we were like backing up to tape.
Yeah.
You remember that? I mean, it was nuts. And so to have to like rebuild all of that from scratch, like, might as well just burn it all down and start over, right?
It was tough, man. It was tough. Yeah, and the cost for that matching that storage, like it was an underwater business after because you weren't making enough in ads. At any rate, wow, what a trip down memory lane that was. Yeah. So you were at Facebook super early, and you were at Roblox also pre-IPO, right?
I think Roblox was I think a few hundred people, maybe 400 people, I think.
And now how many?
I think we're like around 3,000, so still not that big.
But 10 times bigger than when you joined.
Yeah. Hey, my personal accomplishment, the last 3 places that I've been, Facebook, Wish, and Roblox have all IPO'd after I joined.
Damn. Well, You next company you go to, let me know, my friend. I was told this is a guaranteed IPO. Oh man. You also talked about like how joining startups can be a little bit of a mixed bag.
Oh yeah.
And I remember when you had joined Anchor, before you joined it,
Yeah.
you were like, oh, actually, we were trying to hire you into Google.
That's right. That's
yeah.
right.
You probably should have taken that.
I know. That would have been a much better move.
At any rate, but at that time,
public at the time, so it was still early.
Yes. But at that time, I think it was like, hey, Ron Conway's in it. There's all these blue chip investors. And from the outside, it looked like they had already built this product. It was far along. And I can't tell you how many times now that I live and have been around longer, since we were younger in our careers, like I've heard that story so many times.
Absolutely.
Like, oh, Jane, how are you doing? Well, I joined this startup. It was so awesome from the outside. I got in. Turns out they didn't have the product that they said.
Yeah.
It was all kind of like duct taped together.
Yeah.
CEOs, like really different kind of values and approach. And it's not an uncommon story. Like, what advice do you have for PMs that are thinking about joining a startup? Because I mean, at the same time, if you pick the right one, it could be epic.
Yeah. So yeah, I joined two pretty early stage startups. The company Anchor, it was originally called Fraud Wall. Started off in the click fraud detection space. And the fact that like one of the I won't mention who, but a very senior Google exec was a personal investor. I'm like,
oh yes,
my goodness, there must be something here.
Yes. And little did we know, he probably wrote like 50 checks a month. It started with a T, didn't it?
Yeah, I won't say.
I love it.
But yeah,
so all the external signals were like, oh, this is going to the moon.
It was like, I think it was the most I was probably at the time more confident joining that company, even though it was tiny, than when I maybe even when I joined Facebook. And just because on paper it was like perfect, like the lineup of investors, I think like Ram Sriram and Rajiv Motwani, like these were folks that were involved with Sergey and Larry when they were building Google, and just like, and Ron Conway was, actually part-time employee there, so I was going to work with him, and so on paper it was like, it was a no-brainer. And PayPal Mafia, like all the stuff. But it was early.
Yeah.
And I was sold on a bag of goods that, the idea was there.
Yeah.
And some of the early kind of analysis was there. But the product was not there. And it was great because I got to come in and work with some early folks, and we actually built from scratch, like the very first product. Which ended up, we built a real product that, we had like, I think 30-40 enterprise customers using it. And, I think there was something real there that I was super proud of, but boy, it was super high risk. So the advice that I would give, especially like early stage, I'd say like sub 100, 200 employees. I would think that you've got to take the level of risk that you have in your head and like 3-4 exit, at least
3 or 4 exit.
Yeah. If you're like, it's like a, I don't know, 25% chance this thing might fail. Because I've also been on the other side, right? Like, you're at this startup, you're trying to hire people who have options of going to, the FANG companies, and you really believe in what you're doing. That's why you're there. But you also want to make the person on the other side also believe in what you're doing. And so I think it's very easy to become enamored by the vision and the, ask the tough questions. Like ask for a demo of, I asked for a demo, actually. I asked many, many different times. Oh, we're right there. right there. So ask for a demo of like a real production, not like a demo video,
Right.
mock-ups, but like a real demo of the system. Do a lot of back channeling. I think early in your career, it's much harder to do that, but back channel as much as you can. But you've got to assume that it's a lot more risk than what you think you're signing up for.
Yeah. Yeah, I would totally agree and add. I don't know if you would agree, but I think culture and values is something that people take for granted.
Yeah.
Especially if they've had the good luck of being at like companies where they had strong alignment with culture and values. And
Yeah.
you just assume like, oh, well, then other companies will be like that. But they're not always, it's not better or worse. They're just different values, different culture. You alluded to, your experience with places with different culture. Maybe it wasn't Anchor, but somewhere else. But how do you advise PMs to assess that? Because to your point, you're kind of being sold.
Yeah. These days there are a lot more resources. I think blind is probably a good, good way to check in. But blind can get super toxic. Like I try to avoid it a lot, as much as possible. But I think if I were looking for my next gig, I would probably check it out and get a sense for what people are saying, because you are going to get the dirt. You're probably going to get way more dirt than is the reality, but you'll get the dirt. Culture's hard because until you're there, you don't really know. People can say, "Oh, we're so collaborative, Tom. We're so collaborative. We have such smart people. It's very empowering." You're gonna hear all the same things, but it's like you'll know the first few months on the job. I've got a very interesting culture story for you.
Do it. Yeah, lay it out there.
I was at a company, and it was within my first, I think, 2 months of being there. I was a pretty senior product leader, and I was meeting with the engineers in a conference room, a few hours, and an exec came up to me and said, "Hey, Richard, why are you spending so much time with the engineers? Like, let them code and stop wasting your time." And I was like, "Hey, like, listen, like I just got here, and I want to make sure that we're aligned, that we think about the roadmap, priorities. I want to understand what they're working on, what's important." And he said, "Hey, listen, stop meeting with them. Tell them what to build. If they don't build it, let me know, and I will fire them. Your job is to build the right thing, and if you don't build the right thing, I will fire you." I swear to God. So
is that the definition of psychological safety?
Oh man, it was bad. It was bad. But I had no idea.
Yeah.
No idea. And so
because that vibe was not detectable during the interview loop, I'm guessing.
I think when you're interviewing and you really see the opportunity on the other side in terms of the title and the job scope and the upside and the money and all the smart people that I'm meeting, you kind of have this like way of rationalizing maybe some of the yellowish flags, maybe even some red flags in some ways. So yeah, I got some signals, but I didn't quite let them land.
You raise a really good point there that I've noticed when you're talking to a company that you're interested in and they're interested in you, and you want to, but they're talking to other people and you want to make a good impression and land the offer, you do give up some objective kind of fact-finding sleuthing options.
Yeah.
Because if you really want to sleuth, you're going to have to push back. You're going to have to probe and make them wince a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you're going to tell yourself, well, but then I don't want to screw up the offer. They'll go with someone else.
Yeah.
And so my advice to people is like, if they don't make you an offer because you're asking hard questions and you're probing a lot, it may not be the place for you. And it's pretty expensive to find out after you've entered your information into the HR system.
Yeah, I was gonna say the exact same thing. Like right when you know you have that offer, but before you accept, ask the hard questions. Ask the hard questions because that's where you have a lot of leverage. And as long as you're not being like a jerk, right? You're like, hey, I picked up on these things. Like, can you explain these things? You're so the company's so invested in you and they want you. It's very rare that it's like, oh, we got Tom and we also got Joe. Like, we'll take either one of them. Like that never happens, right? Even at these really large employers. And so I think at that point, you should ask a lot of the hard questions and ask them tactfully,
Yeah. Yeah. And be careful about your own sort of desire to see the glass half full all the time.
Yeah.
Because, I think many of us, when we've gone into situations that didn't turn out great and we look back on the signals we were exposed to, you're like, ooh, wait a minute. Like I should have noticed, these things.
Yeah.
So I'm so curious about what it was like at Facebook early days.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they're now going through like the Meta, initiative and definitely doing more stuff in AI, and Instagram's doing great. But when you joined, they were like taking over the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I remember checking Facebook, multiple times a day kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was that like?
It was unreal. It was I never had this experience where before I joined, I was like, wow, this is like a really special company. Like this is going to be great. And I think they're going to do really, really well. And then I went through onboarding and was like, oh my God, I had no freaking idea what this company is about. Holy crap. Like I thought they were like, big and they are massive. What they're trying to do is going to change the world. Like it was crazy. Like,
yeah,
I went through onboarding. I remember texting Erica, my wife, and saying, oh my God, I'm so freaking excited. I could piss myself. Like it was that unbelievable. And, I got to work with like a lot of really awesome, really like high impact people. Like I remember again going through orientation. I think he's kind of well known now, Chamath. He does the All In podcast with a couple of the folks,
the besties.
Yeah, but he was pretty amazing at Facebook. A bit of a lightning rod in a few different ways, but I remember at orientation, he was like super intense and was like, you have earned a seat on this rocket ship. And when you are here, every minute matters. And you better be asking yourself if you're spending each of these minutes working on the most high impact thing, because you have made it onto this rocket ship, but we have a pretty like incredible, daunting task ahead of us. And was like hard. But it was like, you could either walk away from that being like, oh my God, like what the hell did I get myself into? Or walk away energized. And I remember like from that 30-minute onboarding, and then like, Boz was also like did some onboarding. Like it was incredible. And I'd say that like the universal belief of folks at Facebook at the time that we were going to change the world, and that making the world more open and connected, that's what everybody was saying, more open and connected, was going to change communications and society as we know it, for the better. I think it's been a bit of a mixed bag, to be honest, but we were all in. And this was also when like all of the celebrities made their rounds, and they would stop by Google and they would stop by Facebook, and I think they would stop by a few other places. And I remember again at onboarding, it was so funny. So I was sitting in like the second or third day of onboarding, and all of a sudden, it's a glass door, and we see these people like running down the hallway, and what's going on? Is it like a fire? Is it like is something going on? And the facilitator was like, "Oh my God, Kanye West is in the building." And so we all stopped and then ran into the hallways into the cafe, and the entire company just like assembled there spontaneously. And Kanye West, who was like really big at the time, did this like impromptu concert. He literally like stood on these tabletops and like did some raps for these songs released. Yeah. And it was so funny because this was like, I don't know if you remember the whole Taylor Swift when he interrupted Taylor Swift at
of course,
the awards. He got up and the first thing he says, "I'll let you finish." But yeah, that was like, it was at this magical time. It was amazing.
What was it about? So that's like a tale of two startup stories. Like you joined some startups and it was much worse than you expected when you got there. And then you joined Facebook and it was like way better than you expected.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of curious, in hindsight, what signals could you have picked up? Like how can we all get better at identifying those opportunities where you're going to feel better after orientation, not like, oh, what the hell did I join? Kind of.
I was able to back channel a lot more Facebook opportunity. The person who sort of opened the doors for me for the interview was someone that I had been working with from my startup. So I felt like I had a pretty good resource that I could turn to. And, he probably would have been upfront with me if it was, if there were some big red flags. So there's that. I definitely overlooked a lot of signals that I actually did get during the interview process with this other startup. Like when I think back on it,
right,
I'm like, oh yeah. Like, the signals are there. So yeah. So
why do you think you overlooked them?
Because it was a huge, massive opportunity for me. It was big, and I wanted it. And the company was also on a bit of a rocket ship. So yeah, I just I was like, hey, and you know what? It's so funny. I was actually reflecting on this with Erica, but I remember thinking to myself while I was there, I was like, but now I have a seat at the big kids table. So I have what this company needs to change the culture. Like that is one of the biggest contributions that I can make to this company. And I really believe that. And so, but that's hard to do. But I like in looking back, I remember thinking to myself, like, if this can change at this company, like, it could be even that much bigger.
Yeah. What advice can you give people who are in that situation where they're at a company that they really do believe has a lot of potential, and they are in a leadership role, but the way they do things or the values or the processes or the approaches are just so different. That's not easy to change in a startup. I mean, startups have a culture for a reason. It's kind of burned in. It's usually founder led, right? And you were joining as a hired executive. How does one influence culture in that way?
I think it's very hard, because I think culture, especially at startups, is very founder driven. And that's hard to change. So I would say that if it's culture, if that is one of the reasons why you're finding it really hard to be successful, I think you have to like evaluate your right. You can either change the culture, which is really, really hard, but maybe you can change it locally so that your teams and you personally feel really good about the culture, like that sort of immediate culture. Or you can change the culture, which is really, really hard, or you can reject the culture and leave.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard. I think culture is one of those really hard ones.
I totally agree. In fact, I might even go further than you and say if you're a PM and you're considering joining a company, but you're like, I'm not sure about the culture, don't.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be able to change it.
Yeah.
And by the way, that culture might be working for them. That's what they want, like not like any of us are like God's answer to like we know exactly what culture every company needs.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's so hard to change it that if you try, it might work, but it would probably cause disruption. It may not be doing a service to the team even.
Yep.
Like, and I think part of the challenge is, especially for senior roles, the language might be, oh, Richard, we want to bring you in for that. We need your help to do these things. And they do, but there are some things that they're not, that they're not going to want you to change. And, and I think culture is, it's a very personal thing. It's like naming your kids, it's very personal.
Yep.
What do you think about, like, let's zoom out and talk about product management, like the job. Let's talk about being a PM, like fresh out of B school or an APM, like first few years, versus being like an early manager versus being a manager of managers. Like those are, in my mind, different. I'm curious how you look at them.
Yeah. So I think about sort of the changes of the role along a couple different axes. Like one is like on the people management side, but the other is like on the core job, like the core PM discipline. I think also changes in terms of how you can add the most value, and it's something that like I've learned quite a bit recently. But on the people side, I think I'll just start by saying that in the Valley, in Silicon Valley, like I wouldn't say the tech space is known for great managers. And you probably know, right? Like people generally become managers because they're awesome ICs, right? And that doesn't mean that you are a great manager. And there's like not a lot of manager training, like back in the day, right? There used to be like GE would have like, it was like a discipline, and you studied it and you practiced it and you learned it and you got best practices, and you read like the Jack Welch book and all that stuff, right? You know what? What's so funny? I read one of these books a long time ago, and I think Jack Welch used to write on sticky notes and write notes to his employees and just say something like, hey, I know you got this really big presentation coming up, like you're gonna kick ass. And for some reason that stuck with me. And so I've done that, and I'm amazed because people tell me, they're like, hey, I still remember that time when you left a little sticky note on my laptop and said, hey, you're going to crush it in this meeting, or like, hey, like, before presentation, like, hey, don't be nervous. You got this. Like, so that stuff, like, I don't know. I just kind of read it in a book and tried it. I was like, oh, kind of works.
Wow.
Right.
Like a physical sticky note, not a instant message.
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're a much better manager than me. I'd be like, don't screw it up.
While they're in the meeting, what are you saying?
Why did you send me this earlier?
But no, seriously. So like, I think management is like I think, some people take it very seriously. And some people are just kind of like, it's just part of the job. I think you want to be with somebody who really takes that role seriously, because it makes such a difference working for a manager who believes in you and is committed to developing you than
Yeah.
a manager who's not. Like it, man, it makes such a huge difference.
Huge.
And so, I think that like out the gates, as an undergrad or like as a new fresh MBA going into product, um, I'd say that like help your manager, right? Like I always tell my team, I'm like, hey, look, I guarantee you, I don't spend as much time thinking about you as you spend thinking about you. So you help me. Like if you
Mhm.
want to learn in a certain area, if you feel like you're not being challenged, if you, want to dabble in a few other things, like let me know. And I will help as much as I can. I think as I've progressed and sort of managed teams, one really important lesson that I still I know I don't practice it enough, but I've had people tell me like, hey, you're very hands off. Like you sort of make sure that I'm pointed in the right direction and you push me along. Um, but you don't give me a lot of like positive reinforcement. And for me, like my approach is generally like, hey, look, like I'm very hands off. And if I am confident that like Tom is killing it, like just crushing it and doing a great job, and like, you know, I'm going to be very hands off. But and I interpret that signal that I'm putting out as, hey, you're doing great. Like I don't even need to be involved. You're doing so great. And I've gotten feedback from people who say, look, like I kind of feel like I don't know if I'm doing well enough.
Mhm.
I'm overwhelmed and I'm just like winging it. And you're
Mhm.
not telling me if I'm doing a good job or not. So that's been pretty interesting. Like honestly, in the past few months, I've gotten that feedback a few different times. So that's something that I try to keep in mind. Um, and then in terms of like the job, like the actual job of PM, um, number one, like I've never gotten away from the IC job. Like I'm still writing specs. I'm still doing design reviews. I'm still designing experiments. I'm still looking at data. Um, so there's that, which I think a lot of people, some people don't like. I like it, as long as I'm
Mhm.
it, for 100% of my time. But I've also found that like the way that I can be most valuable as a PM, um, as more of a senior PM, or I'm a senior director now, um, has actually less to do with like the core toolkit that you learned early in your career. So less to do with like what does the data say, or like what are you hearing back from customers, or um, like like what's the experiment going to tell you. I think as you become more senior and in sort of the decision making circles about strategy, I find that it's less dependent on those objective cues. And a lot of it's like people.
Mhm.
So I got some really, really good advice like a few weeks ago, uh, from the VP of finance at Roblox. And he was saying, um, look, like you can be the most impactful by aligning the executive team.
Mhm.
Everyone has opinions, um, and more so than like, hey, this is the path, and like
Mhm.
I got to convince everybody to go down this path. It's actually perhaps more valuable to make sure that the executive team is just aligned, right? And sort of like, um, not speaking a different language and agreeing to like the metrics that matter, or agreeing to on how to like interpret the vision of the company and like get that baseline, which is like super interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot about like, wait a minute, like I think I know the answer, and like my job is to like make sure that people also know the answer. But I think as you become more senior, maybe that's not the most efficient path. Maybe the path is you get these like really opinionated, super, super smart people to just kind of like align first, and then you sort of like gravitate them. So I don't know. It's something that I'm spending a lot of time trying to figure out. And I think it's really, really valuable feedback.
Yeah, it's such a tough transition to your point from IC to manager and then manager to let's call it like executive, because like whatever got you to the the next phase is not what you need to be successful in that next phase.
Yeah.
And we all see it where the superstar IC gets promoted, put a few people under them, and it's hard because everything they've done leading up to that point is like maniacal ownership, massive attention to detail, like always hitting the goals, always on top of every detail. And if you're a manager like that, then it's going to be really hard for the direct reports to thrive. And then also for that manager to scale, right? Because then they don't have enough time in the day. And then once you figure out how to do that, then to your point as an executive, now you're like talking about broader alignment, vision, values, like culture, judgment. And it's not judgment about this experiment or that experiment, but it's a judgment about like, do we make this massive bet this year or not, or whatever, right? And whatever got us to that point didn't train us for those kinds of challenges.
Right.
Oh, you got the boba?
I got the boba.
Oh my God, we are in the Bay Area. What's that? We got the fidget spinner of 2024. I hope you got less sugar, Richard.
I got 75% sweet.
I don't know if that's
75% sweet, 50% ice.
Yeah, there you go. It only cost you about $9. Okay, so we talked about.
Can I just one other thing? Like I've realized that as I've been sort of in PM for a couple of decades and been at different companies, like to your point, like I've just learned to appreciate that like so much of not just PM, but like of driving influence and just even just general work is like people. It's like just understanding people and how to influence people and recognizing that like people have like their own motivations for like maybe career development. They have their own sort of like ideas of what this company should be doing. They have their own fears, their own insecurities.
Yes.
They have their own like competitiveness, all of those things. Like, believe it or not, like I've realized that, to even just drive alignment, it's like, okay, like what is Tom thinking? And how do I make sure that like I understand what Tom is thinking and I appreciate that. And I can get Tom on board with this thing, despite the fact that like maybe it's not in Tom's best sort of career trajectory to be on board. You know what I mean? Like it's that stuff that like is actually really hard. And I think I've struggled a bit because I'm like, that's BS. Like there's like data informed good decisions. And then there's like, maybe you can call them emotional or like decisions out of fear. But at the end of the day, we're all humans, right? And it's something that I have like really been trying to like appreciate more about the job and lean into.
Yeah.
As opposed to kind of dismissing it.
Totally agree. I mean, I still remember first year of business school when they made us take all these leadership org behavior stuff. And I was like, what is this crap, man? Like, give me finance and strategy and econometrics. I don't need this fluffy stuff.
Yeah.
And you know what? Everybody you talk to now at Reunion is like, yeah, that fluffy stuff, that's what it's all about. That's where the value is created.
Right.
And nowadays, like ChatGPT can run the numbers for you anytime you want.
Totally. And honestly, like if you're working on the right set of problems at a sort of high impact level at the company, those problems are not informed by data.
Yeah.
Like sometimes they're really, really hard trade-offs. And
yeah.
Like they're very principles driven, or it's like, well, what's the version of the world that you see 5 years from now?
Yeah.
And like data's not going to tell you, like at Roblox, like what is Roblox going to be 5 years from now? Like no data's going to tell you that. It'll be data informed, but like a lot of it is like what are your set of assumptions about like the 5 things that can impact the trajectory of this company, and then like, yeah, so a lot more interesting in some ways, but also like not as objective, right? So some ways it's cool.
No. Yeah. In fact, if it were solvable with data, like it wouldn't get up to you. Like that would have been handled by the ICs or the managers or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I think when you get to a certain level of seniority, you get handed the stuff that it's not obvious, and we're totally making a decision with very imperfect data.
Right.
I have a couple of questions from the live chat.
Okay.
I wanted to get to them before we run out of time. Ethan Binder asks, curious if there were any mentors at Facebook or along the way who helped 10x or accelerate your learning and how you approach mentoring, fostering growth within your own team. Well, yeah. What's your take there?
In terms of like managers or mentors, like I would say there was like one person, to be honest. I think it was like just a collection of feedback that I got from a lot of different people at Facebook. Like I think Facebook really, at least when I was there, leaned into the idea that feedback is a gift. And like Tom, you and I have talked about this a lot, right? Like if you can get to a point where you are open to feedback, you do not get defensive, and you really like appreciate feedback. It's like it's an amazing thing, right?
I love it.
So I would say that one of the most impactful, I wouldn't even call this person a mentor, but I took this like public speaking course, and this person also encouraged me to really lean into getting feedback. And like after, if I spoke somewhere, I would talk to somebody and say, "Hey, do you have any feedback for me?" The typical answer was like, "Oh, you're great. That's great." But then to actually force them and say, "Hey, listen, like I would love some constructive feedback. Like what could I have done better?" Like that, that makes a difference. Or even from like people who I managed, right? One of the guys who I managed was always like, "Hey, Richard, like I don't get it. You need to spend more time like grabbing lunch and coffee with other senior leaders." And I'm like, I'm too busy for that. And he's like, "No, Rich, I think you should." Like, and so like it wasn't one or two people, but I think it was that culture of feedback, and ideally like my receptivity to feedback that allowed me to get a lot of this, some of the acceleration in my career. And then in terms of like how I approach, sort of mentoring and growing my team. And it's funny, Ethan, I chatted with him earlier, so good to see you join. I don't know, like I really try to take my role as a manager very seriously. And with my team, I try to think about like, I approach it as like, I've got you for maybe anywhere between 2 years to who knows how many years, right? And so my job is to make sure that you exit my team better than when you came in. And if you tell me like what your longer term goal is, like my job is just to get you there faster. And so I share that with people who join my team. And I really do believe in that. If you've worked at some of the larger companies for a while, you like reorgs happen all the time. Some of your best employees go to other teams, or ideally like get really great opportunities. And so I don't know, like I just try to think about like what can I do to help this person get to where he or she wants to go as efficiently as they can, and hopefully leave my team better than when they joined. And just like and to be like really honest about that.
Yeah, I love it. Let me throw in a couple of things I've noticed along the way in terms of great mentors who helped me accelerate my career. There are two that come to mind. One was amazing because this person was just so freaking decisive and had such a bias for action. I was like, whoa.
Yep.
Did we just make that call?
Yep.
And so I just love that. I still think about that person and be like, yeah, that person is really great at that.
Yeah.
And then another manager in my past, to your point around having a manager that believes in you, when you feel like someone believes in you, you bring your A+ game in a way it out of a mindset of abundance.
Yeah.
Versus like, oh shit, I need to like impress my boss. It's like, oh no, he thinks I can do this. I'm gonna freaking do this, you know?
Yep.
So but I we had another comment that we want to get to. Mr. Stanzel from Red West. So apparently he remembers Ballmer asking people to read straight from the gut. So maybe was that the book you were referencing earlier in our conversation?
I remember the time. I mean, man, that was such long. That was like 20 years ago, right? But yeah, it was like a management book. I don't know.
That was a popular one.
Yeah. And so the 20-70-10, is that like the portfolio allocation of resources, right? Like the core,
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
I see it referred to more as 70-20-10. I'm wondering if maybe if there's something to the ordering, but yeah. Either way, I mean, I think that's also where Welch was like, we're going to be number 1, 2, or 3 in a business, or we're going to exit that business.
Yeah.
Like the focus, and you hear that from Musk now. You know, the science of subtraction. That, you know, I think I was just watching a talk by him yesterday where he was saying, if you don't overcut from time to time, like meaning like if you don't overcut things and then have to like correct it later, if you don't have to correct it later, you didn't cut deep enough.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously he's taken that to a whole new level at Twitter. But yeah, you know, I think there is something to be said for focus and really nailing a few things.
Steve Stanzel, man.
Steve Stanzel. Steve Stanzel was on my interview loop. He was a tough one.
Yeah.
He was tough to impress. All right, we have another question, which is, what channel, book, community do you use to deal with the fluffy stuff?
I wonder, I'm trying to like figure out what this means. I wonder if it means like, how do you learn to deal with the fluffy stuff? Or is it like approaching the fluffy stuff in like a negative way? Like, oh, that fluffy, like, what do you think, Tom?
I think the question from this person is like, how do you learn and master that, what we used to think of as fluffy, but now we both agree is super important?
Man, I mean, no obvious answers come to mind. I will say that, like, you know, podcasts have been really informative for me. I've got a huge crush on Scott Galloway. I don't know if you know who he is.
Yeah, dude.
That guy's awesome.
Are you going to start swearing now?
Start making some really inappropriate jokes.
Yeah. He has not gone through all of the HR training.
No, he is not. But I love his work. But seriously, like, so that's been really good. You know what's been really good? Have you listened to the Acquired podcast? It's out of Seattle.
Yeah, by the former Madrona guy.
Yeah.
I haven't listened to it. Is it good?
Dude, it's good. It's good. Oh. You got to listen to the they just did one on Starbucks. And just like so many stories about like things they got right, things they got wrong. Oh my God, I've got a brain for it. This the founder of Starbucks,
Howard
Schultz. Like, he says that he was against frozen drinks at Starbucks. And I think now it's like 70% of what they sell.
Yeah.
But to see somebody like openly admit, I made a wrong call. I was against my gut. And like that's pretty powerful, you know? And in that podcast, he Howard Schultz actually like was interviewed for the podcast. That's a good one. It's a really good one.
Wow. I'm going to have to look that one up for sure.
There's so many awesome, like, I have no idea things about, you know, Schultz and the team, and like really hard things that they learned. So like, I don't know. I think like, you know, so that's been super helpful. And then like, honestly, like, you know, I talk to you, Tom, a lot. I talk to like other friends and mentors, and I'm like, hey, there's this thing going on at work, freaking driving me crazy. Like, you've given me great advice, man. Like, really good advice.
I require some Korean barbecue for that.
But seriously, if you can find like one or two people who who you trust and you feel like have not only good judgment but like think differently than you, I think a lot of those fluffy questions are really good fodder for like really great conversations over campfire or stuff like that.
Absolutely. I will add one other recommendation. Have you read the book Positive Intelligence?
Mm-mm.
Oh my God, bro.
I think you told me about it before. I think you mentioned it.
You have to. You have to. So you know how so it's by Shirzad Shamin, but it's called Positive Intelligence. And you know how you're talking about how important it is to understand other people's perspective. This is a book about understanding your perspective. And actually, Wendy, my wife, was telling me she was reading something that described you are not defined by how other people react to you or how you react to other people, but you're defined but you're defined by how you kind of judge other people. And that says more about you than anything else. And which is kind of interesting. And positive intelligence is around all these like inner saboteurs that help you be successful, but then you reach a point where they become a hindrance, like hyperactive people or super high achievers or people who are really like judgmental. Like those are things that actually can help you succeed earlier in your career, but probably hold you back.
Be successful, right?
Yeah.
Totally. I mean, that's the area that I think I've grown the most and continue to try to grow, which is like for me, it's been like self-compassion, right? And some of the most impactful advice that I've gotten was about just being more compassionate with myself, right? And like, like the way that this person shared it with me was like, Eli, my son, was probably, this is a few years ago, so on probably 8 or 9 at the time. And this person was like, hey, listen, imagine like the 8 or 9-year-old you, right? And would you say to this kid, like, why can't you take on more? Why can't you just figure this out? Like, why are you so stupid? Like, would you say that? Or would you say like, hey man, I got you. Like, I believe in you. You're going to figure this out. Just try your best. And that's all you can do. And your best is good enough. You know what I mean? Like, so, that internal saboteur is I think what has gotten at least me and probably you and a lot of people on this podcast listening to where we are now. And it's been actually like super effective and in some ways like very productive. But at some point in your career, man, it just becomes a saboteur, right? And destructive. And so that visualization of like the little kid version of me and like trying to speak to myself in a way that's like positive, supportive and not like super judgmental and critical. It's something that I still work on, but it's been that's been like one of the most impactful sort of pieces of advice that I've gotten.
Yeah. And you could see that analogy in sports where the people who are operating at the highest level of sports, they have to kind of unlearn some of the fundamentals because that's not the same. They're operating at a level of complexity and nuance and sort of at the edge that the skills that got you to become a great, let's say, soccer player in high school are not going to carry over necessarily one for one if you want to play in the Premier League or whatever. Right. It's just going to require a different muscle memory. All right, Stanzel's clarifying the 20-70-10, and this was the culling of the herd.
Tom, we used to talk about that too in the office. I remember.
Oh my God, what did we talk about? in what context did that come up in our office?
We were like, hey, if we ever start a company, we did.
Yeah. We definitely had moments of frustration with the layers, I think.
Yeah.
But
you know, I used to get so stressed. We used to dream about opening up a Jamba Juice.
The Jamba Juice, yeah. I still remember going to the printer room and printing out like 30, decks, like paper, because there were some meetings where you'd hand it out, and the printer would jam, and oh my god, and you're running through the corridor, and then you give it to them, and they're not even reading the damn thing, and they're just like, yeah, different. Those are fun memories. Ethan has another question. You've been a key player in building some of the most successful ad products out there, first as Facebook, now at Roblox. What do you think is unique or central to your approach that drives the success of these products?
I definitely don't want to overstate my contribution. Like, it is being around some of the smartest people, some of the most inspiring people, and just contributing whichever way you can. So a lot of it's like timing and I wouldn't say luck, but finding the opportunity to get on the rocket ship, right? Like, that's the biggest thing, right? And then at Facebook, I was part of the whole initiative of putting ads into newsfeed, and I had this really hard job of explaining to all of these companies who bought page likes why they weren't guaranteed, their fans were not guaranteed to see all their stuff in newsfeed. They're like, organic reach. I paid for these likes.
But they like my page, and you're not showing my content on their feed anymore, and you're making me pay more.
Totally.
Yeah.
So now I've got to pay.
Yeah.
I've got to pay. Right. But guys. But I remember when we first discussed putting ads into newsfeed, and it's so funny. It was like total crawl, walk, run. You dip your toe in, and the first thing we did was you can pay for your we used to call them edges. So Tom likes Nike. Nike can pay so that all of Tom's friends see that he likes Nike. That was the first newsfeed ad. And it makes sense, right? Because it's socially relevant. I care about the things that you like. And what do you know? Oh, you like Nike. Oh, and it delivers brand value to Nike. That was the very first thing. And then it went into you can boost your friends' comments on the Nike page or on Nike posts. And so Nike just tried to get as many people to comment on a page post so that they could pay to have whoever commented on it, their friends to see that they commented on it, right? So but it was just being surrounded by really smart people and looking for any way possible to contribute to this thing that you really believed in. At least at Facebook, that was it. It's also perseverance too. So I also was part of launching conversion tracking pixel at Facebook, and it was so funny because I had more of a DR, direct response approach, and we were talking about building conversion tracking pixel, and I was on the product marketing side, so I spent a lot of time with our advertisers and was like, guys, listen, they will not spend unless they can track the conversions that they're getting on Facebook. And the feedback was, no, Richard, we already tested this last year. It doesn't work. They don't need it. They don't need conversion tracking. And the reality was that they had tested it a year ago, but it was built as this total MVP. It was aggregated data. It didn't work the way that advertisers needed it. And of course, it didn't deliver the signals that we would ultimately use to do optimization, right? So it was a lot of just perseverance and really just kind of pushing what I believed in. And I think at Roblox, on the ad side, I'm one of the few people who truly is passionate about advertising, believe it or not. And I've seen what it allows companies like Facebook to do, not only from like earning and like reinvesting that, but also from like what you can deliver as a world-class experience via ads. And like, if I open up my Facebook feed right now, I guarantee you the ads are freaking great. Like, I've been looking for shoes right now. Like, and I swear I'm probably going to buy a pair of shoes very soon because I keep seeing these awesome shoes that I want to buy. And so like at Roblox, I've been very passionate about the opportunity that we have to build an ad system at Roblox. And the moment you say that, like, a lot of developers in the community or even users will be like, oh my God, it's going to be terrible. But I believe that like we can do this in a truly vision aligned, innovative way that delivers value to, of course, the advertisers and of course to Roblox because we make money, but also to our developers who earn from not only people spending Robux in their game, but now they can earn from putting these really cool, innovative ads into their experience, you know, at their choosing, right? So I guess like, sorry, long-winded way of saying a combination of right place, right time, being with some awesome, smart people and contributing whichever way you can. And then where you feel like super passionate and you believe, like really, really advocating for that.
Love it. All right. We have one more question from the live chat, and then I'm going to do some rapid fire. Then we'll wrap up.
Cool.
Okay. Boba, you got the boba loaded up? You ready?
I'm getting there.
About $4 in. Okay. So any fun rituals or traditions you have on product teams that you're at now or in the past that you want that you think were helpful?
So at Roblox, we don't do it as much anymore, but we used to have game jams where like we'd get together, and this especially over COVID, you know, we'd all be locked up in our houses. And so we'd have like, we'd specify, I think, a weekly game jam, and we'd all get together. And oftentimes we'd play Roblox games and we'd just like decide which game to play. We'd all jump into the same game server and we'd play together, or we just play like other, you know, other games like Among Us and a few other things. So that was kind of cool. Another ritual that I did at Facebook, and I don't know, I actually don't know how I liked it. I don't know how much my team liked it.
Yeah.
But we would always like start off our team meetings just like giving props. And hey man, you know, you're not obligated. You're not obligated at all. And not everyone should get one, but like, let's just start the meeting first 5 minutes, like giving props out. So I'd be like, oh, props to Tom for, you know, doing that podcast. Like, thought it was super interesting. And, you know, I got a lot of like just that type of stuff. I thought it fostered like a pretty cool, you know, cool environment. Yeah, I don't know. Those are things that come.
I like it. I like it. All right, ready for some rapid fire.
Let's do it.
I think we've covered, well, best and worst advice you've received as a PM.
Worst advice I remember, and I think you were working with me at the time, and I won't mention names, but somebody told me sometimes PM is just putting lipstick on a pig.
Oh,
Do you remember me complaining to you about that?
No, but that's terrible advice.
Advice, man. And yeah, and I was like an early PM. I was like, oh my God, what is this job? That was terrible.
Yeah. Well, I was definitely not me nor Stanzel.
No,
I can say I'm sure.
Yes,
yeah. And best advice?
Well, we talked a lot about it, but like, you know, I think the self-criticism and self-saboteur, like getting rid of that, probably been the one that I've most, you know, like been focusing on, struggle with, and see the potential for.
Love it. Love it. Okay. So the next question is, what would you have done differently if you could go back and make some different decisions?
One that comes to mind is I think I would probably have made decisions sooner to move on from my, you know, from where I was working. So like Hotmail, perfect example, right? We were both working at Hotmail. you took off and did the startup, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And remember, like we was talking, I'm like, Tom, I just feel like I gotta stay until we ship Windows Live Mail. You remember?
Yeah. That's it's just imminent.
Yeah,
That
right.
project's gonna be done imminently.
And
Yeah.
I need to be able to say, like,
Yeah.
I shipped it. And then,
Yeah.
like, a few years later, no one cares.
Nobody cares.
And like, and Tom, you left before ship, but like you contributed as much, if not more, than what I did. Like, so like, I think you have this tendency of like getting super comfortable. And I think in places where I have oh, what's up, Ben? Ben, you're not ignoring me. No, I'm just kidding. It's an inside joke. But places where I've left, and I've stayed at my employers for quite a bit of time, like, Facebook was 7 years.
Yeah.
It's been like, almost 6 years. But I think, you get super comfortable, and there are like other reasons that sort of discourage you from leaving. And so that's probably something that I would like just be more vigilant about. Like if you're not getting fulfilled, and if you're not like doing your best work, you should ask yourself, like, is now the right time to find the next best thing?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think people end up on one extreme or another where they bounce around like every 18 months. And then they are the other extreme where they're like, they stay probably a little bit longer, way past the point of diminishing returns. And it is hard to time it, right.
And the reality is, if I'm like looking at a candidate and I'm like, oh, this person has done a year and a half, a year. I'm like, ooh, if I had to bet, this person's going to give me a year.
Yeah. Fair enough. Characteristics of high performing versus poor performing in orgs.
I don't know. I feel like we kind of talked about this a bit. Like, I think the culture is a really big one.
Yeah.
I think having a culture of transparent and direct feedback is super critical. I think honestly, Facebook in the earlier days was really, really good at it. And then over time, our whole like PSC, like performance cycle, the review process just got so overwhelming. So I think they kind of lost that. And I heard that they've revisited it, but I think that's really indicative of like a high performance organization. I think also like I don't know. I would look for orgs that if you were to ask an ICPM and the lead of that org and a random engineer and a random marketer, like, what's the vision? Like, what does success look like? If you get like a bunch of different answers, that's a big red flag. But the reality is that like
that's like 80% of Silicon Valley.
Totally.
Yeah.
And some of it's like they're localizing to their specific like domain or something, but like, man, it's so hard to get everybody pointing in the right direction. It seems so basic, and yet it's not.
Totally agree. Yeah, I remember in early parts of my kind of like manager career, I would get tougher ratings in peer reviews on vision setting and having a really clear, simple vision that everybody really grokked. And I always thought like, man, we know what our vision is. We know what our strategy is. We wrote it in the 2-pager.
Yep.
But then you realize like, no, part of my job is to re-emphasize this and to bring it back to it continuously.
Yeah.
Because like left to its own devices, it just kind of like sprawls and everybody kind of pulls it in different directions. So and it's one of those fluffy things that you wouldn't think was as important earlier on in your career, but it really is, right?
Yeah, you got to repeat it, and like you have to get sick of saying it over and over.
Yeah,
because there are lots of people who are new or who have heard something different or are questioning, and so like you've got to feel like, I'm sure I've said this to you before, but here's why we're doing what we're doing. Here's the vision. Yeah.
And then on your point, let me ask you a follow-up question. I think I know the answer, but which would you rather join? A startup with a broken product but amazing culture,
Mm.
or an amazing product but really broken culture?
I think by culture, I have to put the people into that bucket. Meaning,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I would take broken product any day, any day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, look, like I know so many companies, so many startups that had the product wrong,
Yeah.
pivoted,
Yeah. And they
and
figured it out.
freaking crushed it.
Yeah.
And so, like, as long as you find, that's the hard thing about startups too. Like, you know, the super early stage startup that I joined. I mean, I remember, right? Because I talked to you, and I'm like, Tom, I don't know what the hell I got myself into, but like, there was some really, really unhealthy friction among the core team. And you know, again, I was like, I can fix this, and then I was there for 3 years. But like, yeah, it was hard. So I would take good people, good culture any day, any day.
All right. Last question is, are for people who are like, hey, my kids play Roblox, or I play Roblox. That's a great company. I wish there were ways to work there. Do you know of any opportunities at the company?
I do. um, so I think I mentioned earlier. So I am building helping to build the ad system at Roblox. And so we are one of the primary areas at the company where we are actively investing. I have 5 open PM headcount that I'm looking to fill.
Mm.
And I think only like 1 or 2 of them might be listed on the site right now. But you know, for folks who sort of know PM leveling, it's from an IC4 to an IC6. So generally a senior PM to as high as a principal PM. Principal is just below the director level. So yeah, I'm looking for like literally a handful of PMs. I know that we're also looking for folks in design. And of course, on the engineering side, we got a bunch of engineers to bring on. And I would say that, oh yeah, perfect. Awesome. This role, I think the one that's listed is more of an ecosystems role, which is like, does require a bit of ads domain expertise. You know, folks who understand like programmatic advertising and DSPs and SSPs and things like that. But I am also hiring for more generalist roles within ads. And so even if like you've never worked in ads or in ad tech, but if you're like a practitioner, like if you've like done a bunch of user acquisition ads and you understand like Google Ads Manager and Facebook Ads Manager and stuff like that, like that's great. Like, so I both want people who have strong domain expertise and people who are just awesome general athletes, super entrepreneurial, go-getters, independent. So yeah, and then let me make a pitch. For the job.
Why should someone work at Roblox or on your team?
And I truly believe this. Like, I think there are very few opportunities to be able to work on something that is like brand new, has massive potential, and to start something from scratch within an already super successful, high growth company. So Roblox is like, you know, I don't know like exact, but like we're gonna be like a $4 billion company next year, and that's only from people who buy Robux and spend those Robux in game. I mean, I think we have like 70 million people every day who come to Roblox. And I don't know if I've asked you this. Do you know how much time they spend on Roblox every day?
It's probably something that would make me as a parent have mixed feelings.
That's right.
Like many hours, probably
2.5 hours.
Yeah.
2.5. That's the average.
Yeah.
And so, and then I don't know if folks know, like Roblox is like YouTube, right? Like we don't make a single game. We don't make a single game. We just build the platform that allows developers, a lot of kids, honestly, to like build games and experiences, and then they earn money from that, and then they like continue to innovate and invest. So we've got millions of developers the same way that YouTube has millions, if not hundreds of millions of creators. So like, I don't think that there are many opportunities to be able to build something from scratch that is so obvious, like so obvious, that we're going to be able to build a very healthy supplemental revenue stream for the company under a very safe, high growth business. And honestly, like, when it's not a question of if, it's a matter of when. And when it happens, think about like the flywheel of all the developers who are like super small. They haven't built a compelling game yet to convince Tom's sons to like spend Robux in their game, but they make pretty cool games. And when they start earning from ads that they get to choose to put into their experience, that flywheel is going to apply to not just like hundreds and thousands of developers. It's going to go to millions of them. And so I do think that this is like a massive opportunity to not only accelerate the trajectory of the company in terms of like, you know, revenue growth, but also to like build this additional flywheel for Roblox to, you know, allow our developers to earn and to continue to create. So that's my pitch. That's my pitch.
I love it.
And we're super early.
Sounds like a very unique time, to the extent that it's not some seed stage startup that's trying to like get both sides of the marketplace going. Like, you have a massive number of people already using it every day.
Yep.
And you have a system that's working. You have a developer ecosystem that's already thriving. So now you're going to put some jet fuel on it.
Yep.
And it will be intellectually challenging because, well, there isn't a book on how to like introduce ads into that kind of environment. And like, so you're also pioneering some new approaches as well.
Yeah. Because there kind of is this book, right? There's this book that like, I think Facebook like really changed the book a bit, but there's this book of like, you get a bunch of users, you get the eyeballs, you smack some banner ads on it, and you make some money. Like, that's been the book, right? And then Facebook, I think, really innovated in terms of like the targeting, the formats, like in newsfeed, you know, blah, 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 like all that really, really cool stuff. We're definitely not going to throw a traditional book at this problem. Because again, like, it starts with like being vision aligned, believing in like what Roblox is going to be 5 years from now. And it's not just this gaming platform. It's going to be this platform that enables co-experience, where it's possible that, Tom, you and I are like, you know, watching the Seattle Seahawks and 49ers game, right, together in this like shared experience. And like, we're able to like communicate and watch the game while we, you know, do all these things. Like, that is some of the sort of use cases that we want to enable. Like, even with like learning, like, my kids aren't going to watch Khan Academy anymore. They're going to like learn, you know, advanced algebra by a gamified experience where they actually have fun applying general math techniques, right? And like, and interacting with it, right? So like, that's the thing that we want to build. We cannot allow ads to get in the way. Ads must like accelerate the path to get there. And so that's what makes it really hard. That's what makes it really interesting.
Love it. You know, let's wrap with this question. Since we talked about culture so much, like, how would you describe the culture of Roblox?
I pause because honestly, like, Roblox is like no other company I've ever worked at. Yeah, there's a lot there. We are incredibly vision focused, in a good way, in a very inspiring way, sometimes in a way that makes it really hard for us to execute on like immediate opportunities. Like, I joke with candidates where like, I'm like, I feel like we walk by $50 million bags of money all the time. They're just there. There's like a money tree that's dripping, and we're not like picking up the fruit. And so we're very vision aligned, very long term. We're a very systems oriented company. So like, and this comes from our CEO, Dave. And this is something that this is a muscle that I haven't had to develop until really at Roblox. We're like, as much as possible, we have to think about building systems and definitely not programs. Meaning, like, there's things that we can do to, like, increase monetization for among users, little features that we can implement. But we really think about what's like the underlying system that we can build that has these like product loops that's self-sustaining, self-serve. And so, ads is one, right? Like that kind of makes sense. But we're very much a systems oriented company. And so I feel like there's a lot of features that I want to build where I'm like, I'm so confident this will make us money, but it's not a system. It's like a feature. And it's this thing that like you can launch and you can sort of maintain, but like, it's not this like virtuous cycle, this virtuous product loop. And so we're really encouraged to think about those systems and those loops. I think it's also like, Dave is super, super engaged in the company and has a very strong point of view that cascades throughout the entire company. Like it's very rare to work at a company of this scale where like the CEO is like super opinionated, has very strong points of view at like very deep levels and at very, very high levels. So that's been incredibly challenging. It's been super fun. You get a lot of exposure to, executive level sort of questions, board level questions, which has been great. And then I think the last thing that is freaking probably my favorite thing about Roblox is I think we're like where YouTube used to be about maybe 10 years ago, before like all the influencers and creators came into YouTube, and like now it's like super saturated, right? Like if you're gonna like, oh, like I'm gonna make YouTube videos about like opening up Legos, like no, 50 people are doing that already. Roblox is like super early. And so what that means is that I get to meet a lot of our developers, and just hearing their stories is like so inspiring. I've heard so many stories of like this one person who I won't mention his name, but runs a very, very successful game on Roblox. And I think maybe this is a good one to end with. I was able to chat with him for about 30 minutes, like a month ago. And he said, yeah, like, I think it was like when he was graduating from high school and his mom was like, you got to go to college. And he's like, Mom, I can't go to college. Like, I love what I'm doing and I really believe in what I'm doing. So they had a bet. And his mom agreed if he makes $1 million in 1 year.
Oh my God.
Yeah, right. $1 million in 1 year. He doesn't have to go to college. The guy's crushing it. Like that $1 million.
He's not in college.
He's not in college. he has like a small company.
Wow.
And has a team and has expanded beyond just like the Roblox game into like other extensions. And like, he's got more than a college education through that experience. And so you hear the stories all the time. And like, that's one of the best things about working here.
I love it. Yeah. You don't, maybe most of us may not think about the other side of Roblox, this whole ecosystem of entrepreneurs and creators. It's not just people playing the games; it's the gaming designers and everything. That's awesome.
Yeah, and so many of them are like, oh, I bought my mom a house.
Yeah,
like it's pretty cool.
And you're gonna help. You're gonna help make that happen at the next level.
I hope so.
With even more scale. I love it.
Access to earnings, man, through ads.
Love it. Richard, thank you so much for being so open and spending time like going through and sharing so many of these interesting kind of first person learned lessons. It's been fantastic, and I know people will greatly appreciate this, and it'll benefit a lot of PMs out there.
Yeah, it's been fun. And Tom, I mean, I've gotten a bunch of great advice from you too. So what you're doing is awesome. Like it's really
awesome, my friend. I'll catch you later.
Okay. See ya.
Bye.